Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to the sex stuff in 2008, all right? He's a dirtbag monster. Does that mean Ghislaine Maxwell is? I don't think so, folks.
What? All right, I've been slowly piecing something together over the past 24 hours, and maybe I'm late, but I think the government does not want you to ask questions about their current Ghislaine Maxwell plot. Let me just set out the timeline. Last week, Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted sex trafficking accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein, met with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Yesterday, she was moved to a new all-women's facility after this closed-door meeting, and then, as this happened, Newsmax host Greg Kelly, who is friends with Donald Trump and has been friends with him for years, did a segment where he tried to rehabilitate Ghislaine Maxwell. Throughout this segment, he says maybe she was falsely accused. Maybe she's not as bad as we think. Who knows? Ghislaine Maxwell may not be the convicted accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein that we think she is, even though there is a plethora of evidence that she is a despicable human being. We'll talk about that in just 1 second. But how I viewed this segment that I'm about to play is almost a test run. Testing the waters. What do they call it in marketing? A focus group. He's basically doing a focus group on his Newsmax channel to try to see how are people in the MAGA fan base going to react if I rehabilitate Ghislaine Maxwell. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. He's been dead for 6 years, so it's kind of easier to throw him under the bus. But let's just start from a few fundamental facts. Before we even talk about Ghislaine Maxwell being moved, let's start here. We know that the FBI redacted Trump's names in the Epstein files. The Bureau's Freedom of Information Act, the FOIA team, tasked with conducting a final review of the records, blacked out the names before higher-ups said last month that releasing the documents would not be appropriate or warranted. So Elon Musk comes out and says Trump's name is in the Epstein files. We learned that in May, the FBI sat Trump down and said, your name is in the Epstein files. People are forgetting the second part of Elon Musk's tweet, though, which was, that's why they won't release them. When he says Trump was in the Epstein files, that's why they don't release them. That second part is key because we now have basically evidence that that's exactly why Trump refuses to release them. Let's jump in. I'm excited to show you guys this Newsmax clip. By the way, I'm traveling a bit this weekend, so it would mean the world to me if you hit the subscribe button below. It helps support the breaking news and debates and just keep it all flowing. Keep it pushing forward as I travel, as we build the next stage of this. I really appreciate you all. I'm eternally grateful for the people who are all a part of this. Okay, and here's where it gets interesting. So Bondi's big Epstein file party that she held with influencers was a bust. It turned out all the documents she had declassified, which included pages from Epstein's infamous Black Book, had all been previously released. Mostly recently, during the criminal trial of Ghislaine Maxwell 4 years earlier. This Black Book actually had Trump's name. Trump's name has been on every single list thus far. Trump's followers were irate. Bondi was angry too. She fired off a letter to FBI Director Patel demanding to know why the Bureau failed to provide her with 1,000 pages of documents. Trump's name was blacked out. What happened next kicked off a new phase in the Epstein saga. As this person reported on March 28th, what happened next is truly bizarre. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, directed FBI special agents from the New York and Washington field offices to join the Bureau's FOIA employees at its sprawling Central Records complex. They were instructed to search for and review every single Epstein-related document and determine what could be released. That included a mountain of material accumulated by the FBI over nearly 2 decades, including grand jury testimony, prosecutors' case files, as well as tens of thousands of pages of the Bureau's own investigative files on Epstein. It was a Herculean task that involved as many as 1,000 FBI agents. Dude, talk about waste and abuse. Talk about governmental waste and abuse. Here's the thing. Going after the people who committed these crimes is incredibly important, but it seems like they were using 1,000 FBI agents to look for Trump's name. That is straight up waste, fraud, and abuse. Is Trump's name littered through the Epstein files that much that you need 1,000 FBI agents? Just think about this. There are 100,000 documents, including grand jury testimonies, transcripts, photos, videos, many of which will never be released for obvious reasons. But within all of this evidence, I can almost guarantee that Trump's name is just littered throughout. I'm sure As we know, he's on the flight logs, he's on the black book, he's on all the lists that have been released thus far. I'm sure he's all throughout the grand jury testimony. I'm sure he's littered throughout it all. Senior officials at the FBI's Record Information Dissemination Section, which handles the processing of FOIA requests, push back on the directives. Michael Seidel, the section chief of RIDS, who worked at the FBI for 14 years, was quite vocal. The three people familiar with the matter told me. Patel blamed them for the failure to send all of the Epstein files to Bondi. So it's crazy. While reviewing the FBI files, listen to this. FBI personnel identified numerous references to Trump in the documents. The people familiar with the matter told me. Dozens of other high-profile public figures also appear, the people said. The appearance of Trump's name or others in the Epstein files is not evidence of a crime or a suggestion of wrongdoing. Here's the thing. A lot of people are in the files who just interacted with Jeffrey Epstein. And this isn't me playing defense. There are genuinely people who were friends with Jeffrey Epstein who didn't do anything terrible. I mean, there are photos of Obama and Epstein together. Just because somebody was next to Epstein doesn't mean they did something wrong. Here's where it's different with Trump. Donald Trump was not only friends with Epstein, not only would he go to parties with him, not only would he socialize with Epstein, Epstein was a social animal, so a lot of people have photos with Epstein, but it was deeper than that. Donald Trump had a deep relationship going back to the early 90s, where they would go to sexual parties together, like the Victoria's Secret show, which isn't inherently sexual, but then they held a behind-the-scenes show a few weeks later with 28 girls, just Epstein and Trump. Trump would send Epstein letters with sexual innuendos. Trump referred to Epstein as his close friend who likes girls that are on the younger side. That's very, very different than Tom Hanks standing next to Epstein in a photo in 2005. So there's a distinction to be drawn there, but in preparation for potential public release, the documents then went to a unit of FOIA officers who applied redactions in accordance with the 9 exemptions. The people familiar with the matter said that Trump's name, along with other high-profile individuals, were blacked out because he was a private citizen. I don't think that's fair. There's a lot of evidence that Trump was more than just friends with Epstein. I mean, even if we remove the Epstein stuff, even if we just push that to the side, Donald Trump has bragged about walking into the dressing rooms of beauty pageants. He's bragged about grabbing women because they quote-unquote let you do it when you're a star. So it's different. And really quickly, listen to this. Did you guys know that Trump's new big ugly bill makes ICE the highest funded U.S. law enforcement agency? Well, most right-wing sources are not reporting on the facts of the bill. For example, American Faith, this right-wing news source, only reports this as Trump's deportation plan boosts American jobs. That's one way to put it when farmers are complaining about all of their workers disappearing, but other news sources that are more local actually report on the economic harm. So Arizona PBS reports Trump's mega bill immigration provisions could add $1 trillion to the national debt. Those are two completely different interpretations based on the biases of the news source. That's why I'm lucky to partner with Ground News. They make it so much easier to get perspective on these important stories by pulling all of the sources into one easy feed to show each source's political bias, their credibility, and the news that is not being covered. I mean, some news, like the one on screen, is being covered 56% by left-leaning sources and only 20% by right-leaning sources. So if you want a more thorough view, click the top link in the description to get 40% off the same Vantage plan I use. That is $5 a month for unlimited access by going to ground.news/am. The link will be right below the video. Just go click it right below or click the QR code on screen. I want to say thank you to Ground News and thank you to you all. All right, either way, let's move on to this video of Newsmax host Greg Kelly. This will disgust you. Again, how I viewed this. When I saw this clip, I immediately saw it as him doing sort of a focus group where you kind of pitch an idea, you test it out with an audience to see if it'll work on a larger scale. There's even a chance, now I don't want to go too much into conspiracies, but there's even a chance that Donald Trump asks MAGA pundits to do sort of focus groups. It's not even a bad idea. Trump goes, listen, I don't know how people react if I pardon Ghislaine or rehabilitate her. Can you test it out for me and see what the public reaction is like? I guess Greg Kelly didn't think that MeidasTouch and the apparatus over there would be watching and clipping up every single thing he says. Of course we are, especially on the day when Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a federal prison camp in Texas. Let's watch this clip and listen up.
That's why I'm not taking anything without skepticism from anybody, especially the media, especially the government, especially the Department of Justice, and I don't care, quite frankly, who it's about, including Ghislaine Maxwell and, to a lesser extent, Jeffrey Epstein, all right? I say lesser extent. Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to the sex stuff in 2008, all right? He's a dirtbag monster. Does that mean Ghislaine Maxwell is? I don't think so, folks.
What? You don't think so?
That's not the way our society works, not the way it's supposed to work.
It is. She got due process and she was found guilty on sex trafficking charges.
At all. There is so much exculpatory evidence here that nobody understands, that it looks like the government kept from the defense, which is illegal, juror misconduct, you name it. And look at what happened in that court, right? Prosecutor pointing the finger, all right? Just remember this image for a moment, all right? Ghislaine Maxwell's on the left. It's COVID, right? So hardly anybody's there. And the attorney, the government attorney, doesn't have to wear a mask, pointing her finger right there at Maxwell.
Dude, I just did one Google search, and this is what Maxwell was convicted on. Sex trafficking of a minor, transportation of a minor with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. These are the specific charges. 3 counts of conspiracy to commit sex crimes against minors, including 1, conspiracy to entice a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, 2, conspiracy to transport a minor with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, and 3, conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors. This came after victim testimony of 4 women. 4 women described being recruited as teenagers, oftentimes using the exact same story. The victims stated Maxwell arranged for them to provide massages for Epstein. Former boyfriends and family members of victims all corroborated these accounts, and there were messages all seized from Epstein's estate, and Ghislaine Maxwell was involved in it all. What is this play? Here's my worry. This could be some sort of trial where they're pitching it, because we then learned the same day, yesterday, Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a federal prison camp in Texas. Ghislaine Maxwell, the co-conspirator and confidant of Jeffrey Epstein, was moved to a minimum security federal prison. She's serving 20 years, and she was being held at a low security facility in Florida that housed men and women, but this new camp only houses women. And this is speculation of what I'm about to say, but she just met with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche behind closed doors right before getting moved. So it's reasonable to assume that was a request that Ghislaine made. We do not have evidence that she made that request, but my instincts tell me Ghislaine Maxwell met with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, made the request to be moved to an all-women's facility, and they granted it because they seem to be working in some sort of coordination at this point. Ghislaine Maxwell is also playing the Trump administration, stringing them along, using her leverage. She's said multiple times, I won't speak until I have limited immunity, but then I won't speak until I have full immunity. I won't speak until I have this. So I guess the question is, why does a high-level DOJ official like Todd Blanche need to meet privately behind closed doors with a convicted sex trafficker? And the follow-up question is, why does she immediately get moved to a better facility right after that meeting? And then why does a MAGA-aligned news host that same day suggest that she might be innocent? Here's the sort of theory that ties it all together that I have. And again, this is speculation. This is different than me reporting the facts. The facts are that Trump's name was redacted in the Epstein files. What I'm about to say is what I think could happen. And I want to make sure that's a distinction that we all know. I think that Maxwell is very clearly aiming for clemency, and she knows the one man who might give it to her is also the one man who would benefit the most from getting exonerated, Donald Trump. So if you're Maxwell, you say, listen, I have every reason to play nice with Donald Trump and the DOJ, which is, of course, this is all sick. I'm just trying to put you into her shoes. He says, listen, I'm going to play nice with the DOJ, paint myself as misunderstood. There was wonky stuff going on in the trial, just like just like you, Mr. President, there was wonky stuff going on in your trial, in mine too. That's what she's going to say. She's going to make the argument that the system was against her, just like the system was against Trump. She's going to tease the idea that Trump's name only ended up in the files because he was being attacked by the same people that were attacking her. So it's going to be this long, sick con, and you can kind of see it coming together. I think they really tipped their hand when Greg Kelly, the Newsmax host, began to say this. He did not expect MeidasTouch to be on it. Shout out to Asen for clipping up this moment that would have flown under the radar as sort of a trial test. Let me know, do you guys think my theory is correct that he's kind of focus group testing this to the audience? Let me know in the comment section below. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the Adam Mockler feed. It would mean the world to me. This is the type of story that dies in silence unless we keep covering it, keep asking questions, and continue the pressure. Do not let this story fade away into the blackness. Let's continue to push. I love you all. I'll see you in the next time. Peace out.